So our first topic is Nepal's Gen Z revolution, with Gen Z born roughly between 1997 and 2012 have come of age in a world very unlike that of older generations. And in Nepal, we've had a lot of political unrest. You can see behind me, there's this picture of a government building on fire. So, Amelia, as a young person, would you elect a prime minister over Discord?
I think it's a very interesting thing to do. I think it wouldn't work for a lot of places.
Really? Why do you think it wouldn't work? What's your thoughts?
I think some people are just too unserious, and we'd end up electing someone that is just some random person who doesn't know how to run a country, and it'd be more of like a joke kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. So, because we've had, there's been instances of outsourcing, doing a kind of like crowdsourced ideas, and a particular example that I think of, which is probably from like 2009, was when the UK were like, we've got a boat, a really massive boat, let's name it by asking the public what they think, and they voted for Boaty McBoatface overwhelmingly. So do you think it would be
exactly? I feel like that's what would end up happening. Although in Nepal, the person they've elected was not like what I was expecting when I heard that they had elected someone on Discord.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting someone like quite young, like she's not that young.
And she's the first female prime minister
as well.
in Nepal.
That is
so
good.
Joe, you've used Discord.
Very briefly.
You've got more knowledge of Discord than the rest of us. So do you think that it would be quite an unserious thing to do, or do you think there's a bit more to this?
No, I think it is quite unserious. I think Gen Z as a generation is probably the most unserious generation of all. Do you think it's like they set fire to Parliament and were like, well, let's just film a TikTok in front of it. It'll be fine. Like let's make a meme about this. It's all jokes.
Why do you think Gen Z is the most unserious generation?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a coping mechanism. Maybe it's like if we laugh at it, then it's
so. Are you kind of suggesting that
forwards?
Gen Z are facing a bit of a tougher world, a bit of a
maybe
more
not necessarily
time?
A tougher world, but I think maybe there's a lack of connection with older generations, and they feel like they don't understand Gen Z, and so they kind of built this community together where they're like, whoa, let's just make fun of everything.
So I'm interested, Amelia, in sort of, we say, electing a prime minister over Discord, that sounds like a bit of a joke. But increasingly we're seeing sort of online, social media, online platforms and new technology being used in political ways. So, for example, Ukraine created a crypto wallet for the whole country, and they sort of sent it out to the world, and they were like, if you want to give money to Ukraine, here's our crypto wallet address. I think a lot of us think of cryptocurrency as, a bit of a joke, a bit unserious. What do you think of this, and what do you think of what's happening in Nepal? Do you think social media is kind of moving into being taken a bit more seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it is. I think there are some serious aspects, and I think when social media first came into play, it wasn't very like.
You wouldn't imagine an election happening over Discord.
Anything serious would come out of it, but I think people are trying to, because obviously the world is becoming a lot more technical now. Everything's being digitalized and stuff, so I think it probably will become serious. But
do you think that what's happened in Nepal is going to become the new norm, or do you think it was an exceptional case where there was a lot of civil unrest and so they just had to kind of do something?
I think it's more of a one-off thing. I don't think realistically you could elect every prime minister on Discord.
You wouldn't want to elect the UK prime minister over Discord?
No.
You think it would just turn into a bit... It would just get, Count Bin face?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I do wonder whether it wasn't... because they tried to ban social media. So I wonder whether it wasn't a bit of a dig at that. You've tried to ban our social media, so we're going to use social media to then
It was a really strong political point. And I have one more question for you, Joe, but Amelia, in Australia, they're introducing laws to ban social media account creation by those under 16. So similar to the UK Online Safety Act, we're getting these quite stringent age restrictions. What do you think of this? Do you think Do you think Australia will end up with a similar situation to Nepal? Do you think it's quite different?
I think, well, it's different in a way because putting it like age ratings on things seems more of like a protective measure than just like removing it completely. But at the same time, I don't think it's gonna work really. I think people will find ways around it.
Do you think that with the UK Online Safety Act as well, is that what you observe with kind of people your age, younger?
Yeah, people find ways around things pretty, because everyone's that's in like my generation is very good at like knowing ways to like just, you know, get around all these things and like knowing different shortcuts to like. So
well, we had somebody on this show a few weeks ago, Kirsty Payne, who's a you know, cybersecurity expert. She said it's a bit like seatbelts. When seatbelts were first introduced, yes, sure, people aren't going to wear their seatbelts. Lots of people are very cross, but ultimately, actually, this is going to protect people. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it to an extent. I think it is important, especially like, I think you should definitely avoid having like young children online is a big thing, especially on like social media and stuff, because there's a lot of like comparison on there and things that just aren't, you wouldn't want like to be growing up with seeing. But I don't know if 16 is like too old to be there, or if that's
what
like, a
age
good
would you
I mean,
have?
maybe like 13. But I think that's what the age is recommended on most
for
apps
a lot
now.
of social media apps.
Yeah.
Joe, just as a final point, you know, we've been talking about what's happening in Nepal, and we're sort of thinking about, you know, the way that technology, the way that social media and the internet are being used more in sort of geopolitical infrastructure. You had a story, didn't you, about a voting machine?
Yeah.
What was it?
So this was back, quite outdated now, but back in, I think, 2003.
2003?
2003.
Okay.
So this is when voting machines first became a thing. I think it's really interesting, though, because in the UK at the moment, we still use voting on paper.
Yeah.
And I think that's
almost a deliberate, concerted effort to keep things quite
definitely, I
old
would
school.
say. I think it's due to like security and security concerns pretty much. Just if everything's on paper and then thoroughly checked and counted up by hand by multiple people, they've got systems in place to like supposedly ensure that everything is done.
Do we trust pen and paper and people more than we trust technology?
Technology, I think, obviously, we'll get on to the next story of hackers. Obviously, that could be an issue if someone hacks into your electoral system and then changes all the results. That's not very good. But also, yes, so the story from 2003 was that solar radiation, so the sun basically voted for a candidate because solar radiation caused one of the bits
I thought you meant the sun, the journalism, the paper, but you meant
the actual
the
sun in the sky shining down on us. It
how
it caused a bit to flip from a 0 to a 1, and therefore
the sun cast a vote.
It cast its vote.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it was actually over 4,000 votes. It changed to the 12th bit, so it was 2 to the 12, and gave it over 4,000 different votes for this candidate who actually.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, do you think things have come?
I'm sure.
Come along
don't
a bit
get me
since
wrong.
2003.
Technology has definitely developed a lot since then, but I think there are still definitely concerns around the security and legitimacy, basically, of votes online, and that's why it's not a global. System.
It's been really interesting getting both of your views on sort of the political aspects, but also the youth perspective. I've got some questions for the audience before we wrap up this topic. Do you think that banning social media is an effective way of protecting young people online? And do you think that political elections over social media are going to become the new norm, or is this a one-off?